You might not be able to tell just by looking at it, but what's unique about this Mazda 3 is a new technology under the hood that's designed to extend the life of the combustion engine without the need for turbochargers or electrification. Mazda calls it SkyActiv-X, and you can kind of think of it as using a little bit of diesel technology to change the way that it burns fuel. So, what's it like? Does it have any benefits? And does it change the way it feels behind the wheel? Before we find out, remember to check out the full written review over on carsguide.com.au and hit those like, subscribe and bell icon notification buttons to stay up to date with all of our latest content. First things first, the future isn't cheap. The Mazda 3 will be available only in the top spec Astina trim with the new engine, wearing a rather tall MSRP. It costs $3,000 more than the equivalent car with Mazda's regular 2.5 litre non-turbo engine. We won't get into too much detail here on the Astina trim level, as we've covered it before, but suffice to say, it's very good with almost all the creature comforts and active safety inclusions you could expect on a top-of-the-range car in this segment. The SkyActiv-X can be chosen as a sedan or hatch with a 6-speed torque converter automatic, or interestingly, a manual, which we haven't tested yet. We'd say its main rival, especially with the new engine tech, is the Toyota Corolla Hybrid, a car which is vastly cheaper, but perhaps not quite as opulent. So what is this SkyActiv-X anyway? What's the big deal? Well, I'll have a go at explaining it. So, imagine this mug here is your cylinder. Inside a normal engine, you've got your spark plug at the top, and the cylinder goes up and down like so. In the Mazda engine though, it's got a new kind of injection. It injects twice. When the cylinder is at its lowest point, it injects a really fine mixture of fuel and oxygen. It goes back up to the top, compressing that mixture, and then at the last second, when it reaches top dead center, Mazda introduces a more rich fuel mixture and combusts it using a spark plug like normal. What this does though is that newly compressed mixture at the top, because it's expanding now, it spikes in pressure, and that causes the rest of the mixture to spontaneously combust. Now, as you might note, there's a lot more oxygen in that mixture, meaning you're burning less fuel. It's good, oxygen's free. And it also burns more completely, meaning importantly for Mazda, less nasties in your emissions, less nasty tailpipe unburnt fuel stuff. Mazda calls it Spark Controlled Compression Ignition, or SCCI for short, and there are some conditions with it. It won't operate at idle, it won't operate when the engine's too cold, and it won't operate under really heavy loads, but it will operate throughout most of the rev range, so most of what you're reasonably going to use. In this car as well, it's also mated to a 24-volt mild hybrid system. Now that actually can't drive the wheels, so it's not like a Toyota Prius or something, but it does help take the load off the engine by supporting other auxiliary systems. You can monitor it all through this new energy flow screen, and what that'll do is show you when you're actually using this new compression cycle and what the small lithium-ion battery is doing to support the car's engine and when it's charging too. So, does it feel any different behind the wheel? So the good news here is there is really a tangible difference behind the wheel. That new compression mode comes in really early at about 1200 RPM. And by the time you get to 2000 RPM, really early in the rev range there, you've got peak torque. Now that makes the engine responsive, kind of like a turbocharger, but with a bit less kick and a bit more subtle power delivery. From there, it happily flies through the rev range, making this an engaging and fun car to drive. I wish at this point I could tell you something really cool about it, like it makes a really cool noise, or there's some kind of like clicking on and amazing arrival of power like there was with something like Honda's VTEC. But that's just not the case here. It's all very subtle and measured. I'm pretty sure the engine does have some sort of unique sound to it, but you'll have to be listening really closely. It's sort of a bit deeper, and I don't know. You'll have to listen and find out for yourself. Mazda has even smoothed out the 6-speed transmission for this car as well, making it a really refined and quiet drive. And surprisingly, as this engine works its way through the rev range, even when it's under quite heavy loads, it's quieter than the other two engines in the range as well, which was really surprising and good to see. The stop-start system is brilliant too, to the point where you're not going to notice it at all. And of course, the normal characteristics of the Mazda 3 are all there. It handles really well, it steers really well. The suspension is on the firmer side, so maybe not for everyone, but it's really nice. But is it more fuel efficient? I'd say so. We've driven this car for about 2 or 3 days now, and we've covered about 200 Ks, and the computer is reporting back that we've consumed 6.4 litres to 100. Now, the important thing about that figure is the discrepancy between the reported figure, the lab-tested figure, and the one we've got is much closer than it is for the other 2 engines in the range. So that's really good to see too. Now, an interesting aside, the SkyActiv-X runs on 95 mid-grade petrol. Previous information had it not only running on 91, but running better on 91. Sadly though, the high sulfur content of our base grade fuel in Australia has ruled that out for our market. Hopefully this car won't cost you any extra to run either, with the Mazda pointing to service pricing similar to the existing 2.5 litre engine. As always, Mazda covers its cars with a competitive 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. So, Mazda's SkyActiv-X, it's about as subtle from behind the wheel as it is to look at. But it's nice to see that the technology actually does do what it's meant to. It's just a shame that it's not a full hybrid though, which is why I'm excited to see where Mazda takes the tech next.